another interview with another fabulous lady for season 4 of Kicking Back with Kat. And so this lady I was very fortunate to meet in December last year for a panel I did in LA, which was super awesome. And it introduced me to some of her work. And so welcome to the podcast, Gin Sevani. How are you today?
I'm doing really, really good. Thank you so much for having me. I love podcasts. I'm terrible, but we're gonna happen.
Well,
How are
thank
you
you
doing?
for coming on. I am again. I'm well. A little tired. It's been a really bit of a hectic day, but I'm glad we can do this. I've been wanting to, as I told you, I wanted to get you on, considering our first meeting was because of the panel, and so it was kind of like rushed, and so I didn't get a real chance to really like chat with you or anything.
Mhm.
So I guess I know you said you started pretty recently, so you haven't been doing it too long, but like as far as like your training, how was the training aspect as far as getting into wrestling, and what's something that you learned from training that you still carry with you when you're in your wrestling matches?
So I think that for me, it was a little bit different because I started training in the midst, like literally 2 months before the whole pandemic happened. So it got a little bit wonky and rough, but it was a struggle being able to have consistency in training because of the situation going on with the world. Um, I learned a lot in training. I went to a few different schools, some better than others, but um now that I'm back at like where I first started, I always take the one piece of advice that they told me is to keep training, and the work never ends. It truly never stops. You can never not learn anything. You learn something every single time that you step in the ring, whether it's in a match or whether it's in training. Um and it's okay to not be good at everything. You're it's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with not being able to do something to a T or, perfect something because everybody's good at their own things. And just because you're not good at something and somebody else is doesn't mean that you're any less. So that's something I always carry with me because that was one of the biggest like challenges that I faced initially starting in wrestling was just knowing that it's okay to not know everything.
I love that.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
love the answer because it's something I'm not a wrestler, and I tell people all the time I couldn't wrestle. I couldn't take those bumps and be okay. I probably be like take that one bump. I'm like, we're good. We don't need to wrestle anymore. And so anybody who wrestles, I'm always in awe of, just because it's like you guys are doing this and putting your bodies on the line to entertain. But just doing the wrestling media standpoint, it's always like I don't feel always good enough. I have to tell myself, but I did what I did, and I got where I got by working how I'm working, and so I'm doing something right. And so I love that. That's such a great answer.
No, 100%, and it does apply to everything realistically because, like, we're all human and we all make mistakes, and it's completely okay.
Yep, I love that. And so, like you said, you started training during the pandemic, which is actually when I started doing the wrestling media during the quarantine. Super bored, I was like, oh, I don't really like this is not working for me right now, but I still have wrestling, so let me see what I can do with that, and it wound up working out. But from your first match up until like your most recent match, how do you feel you, I guess, changed or progressed as a wrestler from the beginning?
So, my change is very drastic. I always say, like, my first year, which was last year, 2022, basically, it was really hard because I had really bad habits and, that I needed to just get away from, and, um, last year was also when I returned to the place where I first started, which is Santino Brothers in, Built Gardens, and ever since I returned to that school, it's just I became a whole different wrestler all over again, and, my confidence has increased drastically. I feel like I made so much progress in how comfortable I am out there, how comfortable I am, putting together a match, and, like, I just feel like I improved in more of a mental aspect as well as physical, but mostly mental because it's really hard in wrestling being able to put yourself in a place where you're like, yeah, this is what I was, I'm good at this. I'm worth it. Um, I deserve to be here. And I felt like I struggled with that initially when I first started out. And now that we're a year later from where that was, I feel like I'm in such a better place where I don't think beforehand I was ever like, "This is a really good match that I had." I was always so hard on myself, and now it's like, "Wow, that was good." Is there things that I can, like, do better in? Absolutely, but I'm proud of that, and I'm happy with my work and what I did. So it's definitely more of a mental change than physical, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's again, I feel like it's so relatable just because I do this a lot, and I can't take a compliment, and so I'm like, no, there's like five other people who did this better, and I have to remember that, again, this is your journey, and so it's not going to be the way everything is expected, and so I actually really just come up with such great answers.
Oh, 100%. Like, everybody's journey is so different, and, like, I used to do that so beforehand where I would compare my journey to somebody else's and be like, "Well, why am I not there? Like, I'm working really hard, like, I want opportunities too," and, like, not everything is handed on a silver platter, and sometimes you have to work harder than others just to get something.
Especially as women of color, which I touched briefly on at the
Mhm.
panel, is just we always got to be on top of our game a lot of times to make sure we're kind of showcased the way we're supposed to be showcased or not boxed in what they think we're supposed to be boxed in as. And so super like good mindset to have. So I know you touched briefly on it when we were at the panel about some of the struggles and as far as not everybody always being supportive of that. Do you feel that's made it easier for you as far as having the mindset like I'm gonna make this happen, or is it more of like it was a bit of a challenge kind of navigating through those feelings but also knowing this is where you belong?
I'd like to say it's a little bittersweet. It's in the middle because I feel like personally myself, my emotions fluctuate a lot. So one day I wake up and I'm like, yeah, like the negative energy like is fuel. And then others it's just this negative energy is a little bit too much to handle today. Um it's a good stalemate. I feel like it's hard to really put it into words how easy and how hard or how it motivates me or how it doesn't fuel me because realistically like it's just an everyday struggle of um battle within yourself where it's like, yes, I'm gonna prove everybody wrong because realistically this is where I need to be. But other days it's like, you know what, maybe they're right. And it's just a constant fight within yourself. But definitely as of lately, it's been a giant fuel to my fire where it's like, you know what, you think I won't do it or that I can't do it and I'm not allowed to do it. That's exactly why I'm gonna do it.
I love that. Would you say, I guess, as far as when you were kind of getting your persona, and I know a lot of times wrestlers do turn things up a bit or they bring parts of themselves into the gimmick, but like for you, when you was deciding like move set or kind of what kind of wrestler you wanted to be, what went into that for you to get to the product you have right now?
So when I first started working matches, I kind of just did everything where my previous coach made me do. It was never really anything that I wanted to do, just something that he was carving me into. And when I left that place and started kind of figuring it out for myself, it's I'm still trying to get it together and I'm still trying to find out who I am. But it was more so a very, very lengthy process of what works best for me. And I think over time I kind of figured out my style because of just who I am as a person, especially having a background in like in MMA a little bit. I kind of try to incorporate that as much as possible. But, you know, for me, I think women are very strong and I think that we're very underestimated. So I try to incorporate that into my moveset where it's like, wow, she's a female and she did that. Not that it would matter because we can all do everything, but like more so I try to base my moveset on just showing people that we're very powerful.
I like that. I didn't even know you did MMA. Do you think
Yeah.
MMA was it easier to do or harder than wrestling?
Um, Being hit really sucks. Like legitimately hit. It was hard. I think that they're both the same. They're difficult in their own ways. Like wrestling is really really hard because it takes such a toll on your body, but so does mixed martial arts. I just think that it's two different types of difficult. Like I mean, They're both really hard. It's very difficult sports, but I don't know. I love them both. I wish I could do both.
Never know. Let's put it in the universe. You never know. You might can pull that off. So you've had some awesome matches already, but is there any person that you haven't got to wrestle yet, but you would love to kind of step into the ring with?
Hmm. Um, there's a lot. I feel like this year I've been very blessed to start checking off names off my list. But when it comes to like the indie scene, um, hmm, I feel like whenever I get asked this question, I already know, but then I immediately it just wipes away. Um, I've been seeing a lot of Kelsey. I believe her name is Kelsey Reagan, right? Um, definitely want to step in the ring with her. Uh, Mia Friday. Um, hmm, there's so many. I can't think. My brain wiped out. There's also like Bounty Keith. I've always said I wanted to wrestle him. Delilah Doom in SoCal. I still have yet to wrestle her. Um, who else? I really want to step in the ring with Dark Sheik as well as like Jay Vidal. There's so many people where I'm just like I wish that like I can just have an opportunity to just get to wrestle them because their art is beautiful and it's great.
Yes, and listen, whoever is listening to this live, let's
Let's
make this
manifest it.
happen. Yes, let's put this in the universe, let's manifest it, and we can get those matches for you. I think they will be fantastic, and everybody you mentioned actually are very dope. And wrestling is definitely an art form, at least for me, it is. I think it's a different way to kind of tell a story, and so
Yeah.
definitely very artful. And so, what would you say is the hardest part about this career, but like some of the parts that's also the easiest for you?
Um, I think one of the hardest parts, specifically for me, is knowing that I'm good enough and worth it to be in this industry because, especially for like females, a lot of the times we're always brought down by men, and we're always told that women aren't supposed to do this, or why are you doing this move? You're not supposed to do that. You're a female. It's not realistic. Like I think that's one of the biggest struggles is just being able to wake up in the morning, know your self-worth and know that you're good enough and know that you're worth being in this industry because you work really hard for it. It's hard because the same business that you love is the same business that can also kill you in regards to how you feel about your own self. And I've been kind of struggling with that a lot lately and in the past year. It's just kind of getting away from the negative energy that it can sometimes give you. But the easiest part is honestly just soaking it in when it happens. And, you know, matches are easy because they're what you want to do. They're what you started doing this for. And I am forever like grateful to be ever been able to even have a match, whether I only did one forever or do multiple. I'm just very blessed. And yeah, the hardest is just being mentally there and mentally okay when things get tough.
Yeah, I think sometimes social media also makes it a little worse because we have instant access to things. Obviously, what people post, but we have instant access in regards to knowing more things that we might need to know, or knowing things, and so there's the entitlement from people because you're posting on social media, because you
Hmm.
might be in a spot that's a little different from like the normal person. And so I feel like sometimes even if you get a lot of if there's negative feedback, because I something I had to learn as well is like don't take what people say online too hard too much, because sometimes it's not like really constructive criticism. It's just to be mean or to be trollish or to be cruel, and so that can also put a unfortunate damper on when you're in a good space and you're like, oh man, I gotta decompress. And so it's a little different, I guess, than it was when at least I was growing up. Where we had social media, but it wasn't like this level of social media where it's like everything is like there and people can kind
Mhm.
of be more bold, I guess, about what they do and say online.
Everybody knows everything about you nowadays in social media. It's kind of scary, but it's like you thrive off of it sometimes because it does help you like get connections and meet people. But in reality, it's really scary because like you said, like sometimes that one person like outweighs every other person telling you that you're doing great.
Yeah, and I've also had the weird, the weird. Sometimes you get the creepy. I like you love wrestling fans, but sometimes they are a little creepy. You're like, wait a minute, like how do you even know I was here and that kind of stuff. And so it's like trying to balance that. And so I
It
guess
is pretty weird, huh?
no, I've had some stuff. I'm like, how did you even know I was here? Like what section I'm in the arena? That's so creepy to me at least. And so
Yeah.
it's like I appreciate all the support always, but it's also like boundaries. And I think social media kind of relaxes those because people don't realize that social skills of having some boundaries and knowing when this is not the appropriate thing to do.
Oh,
Uh,
100%.
exactly. So you mentioned sometimes it being a heavy, like as far as like negative energy. So what are some things you do outside of wrestling to kind of get you to decompress and kind of just get back to your center?
Um, I wouldn't call myself social, but when I am out and about with my friends, I feel like that's a very beautiful thing, as well as going to concerts. I love music. So any opportunity I can get to go and listen to live music is something that I do as well. Also, I am a champion at coffee drinking. So taking a local trip to Starbucks or to a coffee shop. um, but I don't really do a lot. I'm currently studying, so a lot of my time outside of wrestling is schoolwork. Um, but yeah, most of my time is honestly just consumed by my husband, schoolwork, and just little time slots where I can insert some time for myself.
And what are you studying in school?
At the moment, I'm studying for mortuary science. Yeah,
That's so cool. Do you do you congrats on that? Is that like complicated for you? Do you find it something that kind of comes easy?
it comes easy mainly because I'm very fascinated by the topic. I know that a lot of people don't really want to dive into that world, and that's completely fine. But then there's a few people like us who really just have a passion for it and helping families and, making life a little bit easier when it's tough.
And we need that in this world, the way it is, and all the the unfortunate things we hear on the news and everything. Sometimes there's just that little speck of hope that's needed. So I wish you like the best in that because
You. Hard.
I had to get a few different degrees at different times, and it can be very complicated. And the second time it was as a mom, and so it's like trying to be a mom and then also go to school and work and everything, and so it can get really hectic. And so
It's too tough
definitely
job.
correct. Listen, I always it was a lot, but I got it done. I got it done, and so I was happy. And then it's like I'm not even using my degree, but degrees, but
You have
anybody who's always every time anybody says they're in school, I'm always thinking that's such an awesome thing because sometimes, especially when you're doing like a job and then you're wrestling, and that can be a lot trying to kind of get that together. So that's cool.
thank you.
I know you're married. I know he's also a wrestler. So how's that aspect like as far as being with somebody who's also in the business? I know it's a little bit easier with certain aspects because he understands parts
Mm.
of that, but how is that like as far as like even separating sometimes yourselves from wrestling to kind of just have each other?
Um, that in itself, separating, wrestling can sometimes be hard considering the fact that it just consumes the both of us. Um, but sometimes we just both kind of have to be like, all right, like let's take a step back and go back to, you know, who we were just for 2 seconds. Um, it's easy in the sense of, hey, can you watch my match? What do you think? And I will admit, he is one of the hardest people on me in regards to my wrestling. And, I completely understand because he just wants to see me like succeed as well as I want to see him succeed. And another thing that I find really difficult that I've been talking about lately is the fact that people constantly compare us. And it's like, oh, well, Christian's good, so why aren't you? It's like, well, Chris can do backflips, but I can't, you know? We're two very different people, we're two very different styles, and at the end of the day, like, he's one of my biggest support systems at the moment, and, I am very blessed to have him, and it is hard to be in a relationship also while wrestling because I know that in the future, times are gonna get really difficult where he may be somewhere else and I'm somewhere else, and I know that, we might not be able to see each other as often, but at the end of the day, like, he's always there and I'm always there for him. And like recently he broke his wrist a few months ago. So I that was really, really hard just seeing him in a very bad place because of it and like losing wrestling for a few months. But it's also very refreshing seeing him now that he's cleared and he's getting back into it, and it's also very heartwarming because he's happy and that makes me happy, and it's really nice. It's nice to have somebody who understands, but it's really difficult as well when you just want the person that wasn't Chris Nasty. You want, but things get busy, and I understand sometimes it's really hard to fit in time. But when we do have time, it's really, really nice. So it's really hard just finding time to decompress. But when it happens, it's worth it.
Oh, I love that. Like, I haven't dated anybody in wrestling, so I don't really know that aspect. But just if you have to travel or something, and I feel bad just as a mom, I would have to go. So when I went to LA, I was like, so bad because like I'm kind of working, and it's not like so. You saw I left that Sunday. I was like, I'm going back home so my kids can get to school. Like, and I'm there.
Yeah.
And so it's I as that is just kind of stressful. So I can only imagine what it is to be with like your significant other. You're trying to like wait, no, like drive, but also you're not here, and so I totally understand.
No, yeah, it sucks because like last weekend I went to Vegas and he had to go to Palmdale, and it was hard because it's just like, where are you? I'm here, and everybody's like, hey, where's Chris? And I'm like, I don't know.
So cute. What are some, I guess, and again, you're pretty new in the wrestling thing, but what are like some goals you want for yourself to hope to accomplish in like the next 5 years?
Definitely having more confidence, owning the thing that I do, um, and being happy with what I can do and not being so hard on myself. Um, but a goal I have is to just climb the ladder, as anybody would want to do, is just climb the ladder. I'm not looking to me, my goal is just to wrestle and have a good time while wrestling and be happy. If I do happen to get signed, I get signed, and if I don't, I don't. But just as long as I can do the thing that I love and do it pretty well, um, I'd like to do that. I'd also like to start kind of like maybe in the future start kind of working a little bit more on the backstage things and you know kind of getting a feel of that as well. Because in reality, you never know what can happen. Uh, I just learned that with my husband. You never know what can happen. So kind of like diving into that as well. But mainly just I don't have many goals because I'm just kind of letting life take the wheel and hopefully in a positive manner. But I really just want to wrestle and be happy. And I hope 5 years from now, um, that's exactly what I'm doing, just whether it's traveling or working like locally. I just hope I'm just happy and happy with myself and content and confident.
That's all a first to kill. Like that's same. Just be happy, like happy with the doing, happy where you're at, and hopefully going forward and like going
Yeah,
forward, like so. Those are great goals to have. I know you said it's not real, but no, those are great goals to have. You always want to be happy in what you're doing in your life. That's always up for
yeah, it's hard to find sometimes, but you'll find it eventually.
it. So we're gonna do a really quick speed round of questions. I'm gonna ask you something, and you either pick one or the other or something like that on the first thing that pops to your head, and then you tell me.
And then what was that?
We're gonna do like a quick speed round.
Yeah.
And so I'll kind of give a question, and it'll be either a choice between or the first thing that pops into your head when I
Okay.
ask. So last TV show you binge watched?
Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Oh my god.
Science. At first, I was like, I'm not gonna like this. I hate science, and then I binged it.
actually really. I have to probably rewatch that. It's been a bit some time since I stopped watching that, but it's a really good show.
So good.
Yes, it really is. They did a really good job with that story. Are you a night owl or morning person?
Definitely not a morning person. I'm a night owl for sure. I hate waking.
Last song you played on repeat.
Angry Johnny by Poe.
Okay, solid, solid. Okay, okay. Your always favorite go-to snack, no matter what.
Hot Cheetos. I'm so
that's
guilty.
my that's what my daughter. She's like, I'm like, but why? And she's like, but do you not understand? And I'm like, I don't, but have your snacks, you know.
I blame my husband for that. He always gets them, and then I used to like have him like once in a while, but now that he always gets them, he's like, "You want some?" I'm like, "No." Yeah.
If you can do one other thing that would not interfere with your wrestling, what would that be?
Be a mortician.
Ah, interesting. Interesting choice. I kind of like. So, are you like cool with like paranormal kind of stuff, or is just like I know you say you like The Conjuring, and that's like a whole thing I might have to dive into before we end. but are you like cool with like paranormal type stuff?
I love spooky stuff. I love horror. I love war, death. You know, astrology. I love it all.
Yeah. Oh, we say we about to be best friends because like listen, like say these. So you said you mentioned because I know you mentioned. I was like, oh my god! And this is when you mentioned The Conjuring. I'm ready. I'm like, so it's not just me, the crazy person who listens to it like background noise. It's like all always on. It's bad. And so what are some of your other like favorite horror movies? I feel like because I'm like the weirdo who likes horror all year round, and October is like, please, this is all year for me.
Yeah,
So
we thrive in October. We thrive in October. Um, I also like my friend Bovi, my tag team partner. His house is always like Halloween theme. I love going to his house because pumpkins everywhere, witches. You know, he even has like this little like baking pan that has like little fingers to like, you know,
oh, I
little.
love that.
Fingers. I love his house, but I have so many. He actually recently put me on The Evil Dead. I know some people say it's not horror, but whatever. I love The Evil Dead. I love Poltergeist. Like I love the 80s movies. I'm a sucker for a good 80s like slasher. Um but anything that's bloody and gory. I like the first Terrifier. I just don't like the second one so much. Um but I love those movies. One of my favorites also is Freddy versus Jason, mainly because like just ooh, the two people the two people I had nightmares of in the same movie, like come on. But yeah, I love it. I love it. The only thing that's I find hard diving into is like the foreign horror movies. Yeah.
Yeah, those it depends on the story. I've seen some really good ones and some other ones I was like, wait, what? And I was really confused. And then I realized I didn't know I was supposed to be confused by it. But yeah, some of them are a little weird and then some of them are like, okay, this is pretty well done. But yeah, I'm more of a like my favorite slasher is Freddy. Because I just
Yep.
was like not that he scared me, but it was more like if you're thinking of like what's the worst scenario. Like
But yeah.
Jason runs slow. You don't have to answer Ghostface on the phone if he's calling you. You don't have to answer the phone. But like Freddy Krueger, you're trying to like sleep and he's there, and I feel like that's a lot more creepy. That
But
the
the thing
guy
is,
is
like,
in your
The Ring also. That was terrifying in the sense of watching a tape because in reality you never know who's gonna put what inside of like a CD player like or anything like that. And you're just kind of just sitting there watching, and all of a sudden some creeper girl is like in the screen and trying to crawl out, and you're like, oh shit! Like, I,
that movie because I watched the original recently, like a few months ago, and I was like, so we're just gonna ignore that. Y'all was just okay, just play this, and nobody. I'm like, I would be like, wait a minute, let's try to before I'm playing anything. We're not gonna just be playing this all willy nilly. But I'm also like early. Like I love horror movies, but I'm also like I would say I feel like I'm too smart because I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, always the question is like, but why was this the choice we made? Like, why are we doing this? Like, why would you put yourself in a situation? And now, do I feel bad? Like, do I want the killer to win? Probably because why are we being dumb? Like, why are we doing this? And I do like paranormal just because I feel like sometimes if it's like something you can't really see It's a little
Mhm.
creepier, which is why I like to poltergeist as well. Is because why we eventually did see something. It was a lot of things we didn't necessarily see right away. It was like
Yeah.
little things or like shadows or like, oh, clearly something's wrong, but we don't really see exactly what that is yet. And I think that's always a good way for me to be like, okay, this is a little bit creepy and unsettling. And so,
It is. And I'm a sucker, like, as well, like, in regard to, like, demons and stuff like that and ghosts. I'm a sucker for a good exorcism movie. Like, I love watching exorcisms done by, like, exorcism producers because they come up with crazy stuff and you're just like, "Ah, is this really what it's like?"
I don't think so. Did you see the exorcism? I think it's of Emily Rose. I feel like that's
Yes. It's so good. It's so she was bending over backwards. Like, I was just
and
like,
it was a little twist that I didn't expect, and I was like, okay, I would have gotten that. Like, I normally pride myself in kind of figuring things out right away, and I was like, okay, I didn't think it was this the way it turned out to be. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but yeah, that's why I love Insidious and The Conjuring. It's so like off, and it's like, you guys, it's like the house. Or like Insidious, it was the child that was haunted, and not the
yeah.
house. And I'm like, that's a different concept. I never heard that before. And stuff.
What was the one? There was one that I watched and I loved it because it like kind of made me a little bit eerie. Sinister.
I will never.
I was like, what? I loved it because it was so eerie. Like I got goosebumps during like some of the tapes that they played, and it's just eerie.
And
I
that was
love.
another thing. I was like, why are we playing these tapes? First tape would have been enough for me. Like, you know what?
I'm out the house.
Clearly, something happened. I don't need to watch the rest of them. He just kept watching. I'm like, now eat that. I'm like, you know better. Like,
And then they
come
always
on.
go back to the house when they say they're gonna move, but they just go back.
Yeah, it's always like insane things. And I'm like, we can't be doing this. But then I don't feel too bad when something happens. But oh yeah, I see. I love olive. I love
We're
olive
talking
horror
about
movies. I get so
hours.
excited. I'm like, oh yes, somebody who's weird like I am who love all this creepy stuff. So let me reel that in. So I guess my final speed route question for you is: if you could have a superpower, what would that be and why?
Going back in time. Yeah, I'm such 80s, 70s baby. That's my era. So I would, if I can just, live in this time and things get hard, just go back to the 70s and the 80s and just live a day there, I would. So yeah, time traveling.
Oh, nice, interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, like there's things that's clearly better now, and it's also like, oh, sometimes the world is just so,
Yeah, 100%. But also like the fashion and like, music and just the atmosphere, like Summer of Love. I would have loved to have been there. Like in San Francisco with
Yeah,
everybody. you know? But yeah, there is some aspects of like those times where it's just we grew out of, but they'd still have a lot of beautiful moments too.
yeah. Okay, well, I want to thank you. This is really fun. We totally derailed a little bit with the Harbury stuff, but it was really fun to chat with you. Tell everybody what you have coming up, got going on, and where they can find you.
Oh, okay. Well, every social media, it's Gin Sevani, kind of like it is. What is it right here? Right there. GINSEBANI on all social media platforms. I have a few cool things coming up. I have to go back to Vegas on March 4th to wrestle Papa Yase for the Versus championship, which is going to be amazing because Papa is a force to be reckoned with. And I have a match against Gypsy Mac on March 10th in, I believe it's like around the San Diego area, and that's for Valley Championship, Valley Connection. Sorry. And then I do have an all-woman show in San Jose on March 18th, and I'm going to be going against Vibress. Um, from the top of my head, that's pretty much it. I'm looking for Mania bookings, so still don't have one, hopefully. But those are a few that I have coming up.
Manifesting people. I need you guys to get some bookings for her WrestleMania. Let's make it happen. But yes, that's awesome. I love that you're doing all that during March too, because it's Women's History Month. Gotta
Yeah,
shoot us, us ladies doing what we do. And so that's awesome. I think that's cool.
thank you very much.
And everybody, I will have the links to your social medias in the description. So definitely go give some follows, check it out. And if you are in the California area, because I'm not, because I would be there if I was. But if you are, please definitely go and support Jen and make sure you guys show her your love and support as deservingly so. And thank you again, Jen, so much for coming on. This has absolutely been a blast.
Thank you so much.
All right, until next episode, guys, I'll catch you later. Bye.